There's things about the record that just don't work and probably never will. You were right, and today we're gonna talk about everything that is wrong with my off-road recovery fleet. This story starts way back in 2009, and if you can remember, that was a really big year for technology and innovation as a whole. Televisions finally got color. The first powered flight of an airplane happened at Kitty Hawk thanks to the Wright brothers. And people started venturing off-road for the first time in history. It was also the same year that I sold my roofing company and started towing full-time professionally. And along with that towing came off-road recovery jobs. And I didn't know what to do because 1, I wasn't a Jeeper, 2, I wasn't a 4-wheel drive guy, and 3, I didn't know how to become either of those two things. So I did what I think any of us would do, and that was I tried to use my on-road tow trucks to do off-road recoveries. It did not go well. Something needed to be done, and word on the trail was there's nothing like an XJ for low budget and high capability. So I bought one, and that started my off-road 4-wheel drive career and my off-road recovery career legit. So I let everybody know I was looking for an XJ, and one of my friends happened to have one for sale. It was a 2001 Jeep Cherokee Sport in maroon. I think it's kind of a rare color that people like, but I don't know. Let's see if there's some maroon left on it.
I think when the front end was off, we saw some.
Yeah, there was some. Robbie did such a good job painting this yellow, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. It's the same Jeep. I started posting pictures of my little Jeep, venturing off into off-road forays. I was putting those on Facebook, and I was getting a lot of positive response. My original intent was to post content to bring in traffic to my towing company when they're towing, but it quickly became apparent that nobody cared about my towing company, but they cared a lot about what this little Jeep could and could not do. So I started posting more of that content. So at this time, Sand Hollow was first gaining its popularity as a come and get stuck destination, and I had a problem to solve. So that's when I got in contact with a little company, you might know them, Yankum Ropes, and a marriage was made in sand heaven. So around this time, I started posting my videos on YouTube. If you haven't heard of it, go ahead and Google it. Google YouTube, it'll pop right up. You can check out those videos here on YouTube. So as I said, my first weapon of choice was a 2001 Jeep Cherokee Sport, also known as the XJ, also known by several other names that I won't mention here. And that brings us to the point where I tell you everything that's wrong with this and how right you were. So the first thing that was wrong with it is they come stock with 235 75/15 tires, which is just too small for recovery work. Luckily, they came with really beefy axles, a Dana 30 up front. Might happen to have a Chrysler 8 1/4 in the rear. And we kept putting tires on there till both of those were broken. Also, I quickly S-bended the rear leafs from doing those really hard pulls. I'll show you the exact moment when I completely destroyed both leaf springs and I severely damaged my rear universal joint. And that's when I went home and went straight to the drawing board. We are gonna fix that with rear links. So since I was doing the rear links, I decided to put long arms on the front too. I didn't have the connections or the money to do anything commercial or even copy what somebody else had. I just made my own style and they happen to work. So at this point, I'm running 33-inch tires and thinking about running 35s, but my little Jeep's becoming quite capable. And somewhere in here, I did a job where somebody was so skeptical that I was gonna pull their motorhome out that they said, "You think you're gonna pull me out with that little yellow banana?" And it was meant to be an insult, and I laughed and I said, "We'll pull you out," and we did. We pulled them right out. I actually mentioned that in a story and it took off like wildfire. Somehow, 1 million people heard that this was called the banana overnight from that story I told, and the name just stuck. It's not my favorite name, but what are you gonna do? So here's some of the obstacles I was overcoming turning an XJ into a dedicated off-road recovery rig. In no particular order, the cooling system needed to be upgraded. There's just not enough cooling capacity on an XJ to do the kind of work that we do. And I know there's at least 3 of you out there that say that it was engineered by a team of engineers and scientists, and it's plenty adequate, that there's no problems with the cooling system as long as everything's in place and everything's working. And to you, I've got a $10,000 challenge. Come to Sand Hollow with your perfectly cooling XJ, and we will hook you up to a trailer and have you pull it through the dunes when it's 107 degrees, with your air conditioning on, and there'll be a $10,000 reward if you make it to the top of the world without boiling over.
Oof.
I would like to try that.
I'm not the type of person that turns down jobs. So I was taking every single off-road job that came through. And the vast majority of those jobs were kinetic energy jobs. Of those kinetic energy jobs, 99.99% of those were in the sand. And what was the battle with the sand? Sinking. Sinking was the problem. If you haven't been to the desert Southwest and driven through their sand and silt beds when they are just deep and fluffy, you're gonna have to take my word for it. Whatever you're driving won't do it. It just won't. It won't do it. If you have been out here and have learned the ways of the sand, then you know it's a lightweight vehicle with sufficient power and a lot of flotation out of your tires, which means airing down and then driving correctly. So this was the second problem. How do I make this vehicle drive where you got stuck, but not only that, hook up to you and drag you back out? I'd been testing tires. I was looking for every advantage I could get in the sand for the amount of money I had to spend. So I'm going through the process and formulating a plan to keep this rig as light as possible and get as much tire under there that works as good as it can in the softest sand. I ended up finding the Milestar Patagonia, and it definitely gave me the advantage that I need. So long before Milestar became a sponsor of Matt's Off-Road Recovery, Matt's Off-Road Recovery was exclusively running Milestar tires on their recovery rigs. And that's because they just worked better than anything else I've tested, and I've tested. If you're thinking of a tire, yes, I've tested it. So this Jeep has done off-road recovery work with 235s on it. It's done it with 31s, 33s, 35s, and it's currently wearing 37s. And the current combo we have are 37-inch Milestar Patagonia MTs, and it's got the Raceline beadlocks, 17-inch, and our spare tires never get used. I don't know how else to say it. I know there's skeptics out there, but all of our spare tires still have the stickers on them, and they just haven't been on the cars. We never peel stickers off of tires. It's bad luck. If you're peeling stickers off your tires, maybe that's why you're having a tire problem. In iteration, I think 5 of the Banana, I decided to put on a Badlands winch. I know that there's some internet debates about how much I hate or don't hate winches and why I didn't run them and do run them. Let me set the record straight right now. I am a very slow learner. You might be surprised to learn that. But I was running winches on my on-road trucks and had been for years, and they've all got the wire rope on them. A lot of people call it cable, wire cable, whatever. And they are very dangerous to handle after they've been ran for a little while. They'll break, and then they've got those slivers. And they've got slivers that they'll go 8 inches into your arm if you're not careful. Like, it is, ooh, woo. And also, they do break. I've broken several wire ropes, and they're scary when they break. They recoil all the way back to the truck. I had one out there 150 feet, and the chain that I was hooked to broke, and that entire 150 foot length of cable came back and wrapped around the truck. I saw that it broke, and I ducked down and got under the truck. I've got the duals in between me and the recoiling cable, and it came back and slapped the door and whipped around and kicked up dust. They're dangerous, and especially if you're not paying attention. And luckily I was paying attention at that time. I was watching that. I was familiar with the wire ropes. I was unfamiliar with synthetic lines, and I'd read some stuff on the internet where people said they were no good. Like, you don't want to run those. They get cut so easily and whatever, they're junk. I kind of believed that hype. And so I was a slow adopter of winches and synthetic winch lines. And you can see my earlier videos, I was still using a lot of chain and hook recovery gear. And now I'm 100% soft. I have taken the metal out of recovery work. So we've broke at least 2 synthetic winch lines, and I've had a soft shackle get cut and turn loose.
What was that broke?
Tell them the shackle broke off the winch line.
It's such a non-event. They just fall to the ground. Now I know this, I've talked to a few of you, and It's easy to confuse the kinetic ropes, the stretchy ropes, from a synthetic winch line. They're not made out of the same material and they don't have the same properties at all. In fact, they're not even on the same scale, because the kinetic ropes are designed to stretch and store an enormous amount of energy, and the synthetic winch lines are designed to transfer energy, but they don't store any of it, or they don't store much of it, not enough of it to be a problem. So me slowly coming to this realization that I can put a lighter winch, because the synthetic line is significantly lighter than wire rope, and also now I'm running big tires and big axles, and we've stripped a ton of extra weight out of the Jeep. Now I feel like I can handle this weight penalty, and then we started finding ways to use the winches. So thankfully, most of you have allowed me and have come with me on this journey as I learned how to do off-road recovery more effectively and more safely by using better techniques and better equipment. So really quickly, I'm gonna go over the Banana as it is now. What is different than the stock XJ? Outside, visually, we've got the early model Morvair louvers. This is to let heat out of the engine bay. I have read some comments that these don't do anything, and I'm here to make a comment myself. They absolutely do something. Thank you. The wheel wells are opened up. We have integrated sliders into the body. Pass the kick test every day. We got a custom rear bumper back here, and it's less about bumping and more about just being out of the way. Up front, same thing, custom front bumper, less about bumping, more about just being out of the way. And so far, so good. We did have a light bar early on because I thought that they would actually be functional, and they're not. If you put them right here and turn them on, they shine on all this dust and they hit the hood and bounce back up. You can't see a thing. They are horrible. I know that if you move them back here to where the windshield and hood are in the shadow, they do work pretty good, but they don't look very good back there. So that was something that we just couldn't use. It was no good to us, so we took it off. We put Ryder aftermarket headlights in, and then we have these. I think these are from Harbor Freight. They're good little pod lights. They're quite bright. When I have these lights on bright, they cast a pretty good, they're pretty dang bright. You flip these on and it's all of a sudden brighter. So these do quite a bit. They're quite powerful little lights. We've got triangulated 4-link in the front, so we have no panhard bar, no track bar. I was told that wouldn't work by a lot of people, and for not working, it sure is working good. On the rear, I've got triangulated 4-link back there too, so once again, no panhard bar. I've got Dana 60s front and rear. We narrowed this one quite a bit. I think we're about 65 inches wheel mount surface to wheel mount surface on these. They're narrower than your typical full-size axle. I've got ORIs on all 4 corners. Got the Toyota steering box on the outside of the frame. So what I've done up here is I have widened the frame so that I could drop a big full-size, it's a dual pass radiator, and then I built an adapter to put a fan clutch off of a Chevy Silverado onto the water pump. There's various pieces to make that work, from a Grand Cherokee water pump pulley to some special machine parts. That's how we keep it cool. I've talked about this before. It's worth mentioning again. The electric fans will not keep up for heavy duty use in the summertime especially. The electric fans are great for traffic and general driving around. There's never a problem, even trail use is fine. But when you're driving up the dunes at 4,000 RPM with a trailer with a little bit of a tailwind and it's over 100 degrees, an electric fan is going to let you down. It's just going to let you down. Go out and look for a heavy duty tow rig anywhere where you are, pop the hood, look in there, you're gonna see a mechanical fan hooked up off of the front drive system to keep that cool. So we even took the race car, a Ford Crown Vic, and they've got big, what many consider to be the best electric fan you can get from an OE. We took that out to the sand dunes on a fairly cool day, and it wasn't out there very long before we had to stop and let it cool down between rips because the electric fan won't keep up. So hopefully that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. It is the truth. So there's tons of stuff on this. We've got these shock towers, and they stuck up so high without reinforcement, we decided to hook them together with that. And we're coming up with some ideas here and there. We got the PSC steering with the Hydro Boost, the Ram on there. We've got a master cylinder off from Dodge Dakota, I think, or maybe something bigger. Oh, this might be off of like a 1500, a Dodge 1500. It's always fun when we have to get new parts for this because you have to guess what they came off from. We've had a lot of questions on what happened with the Golen 4.6 stroker, and the answer is we don't know yet. We just pulled it out. We lost a cylinder. We have a dead cylinder, cylinder number 1. I decided for the least amount of time to have the Banana down, just to build another engine to put in it, and then we'll send the Golen off and get it checked out, see what's wrong with it. And we'll let you know when we find out. So right now we've got a stock 4.0 with a little bit of work to the head, some bigger valves, a little bit of porting there. It's board 30 over if you think that matters. Yeah, it runs really, really good. We've got a couple jobs now, and it's just smooth. It runs just like an XJ. We've got the stock AW4 transmission, and then we've got the Atlas 3-to-1 transfer case. We got the Yukon Grizzly locker up front, and we've got the Dana Spicer power lock, posi in the rear. And then there's various reinforcement points. The cage is tied into the unibody to help stiffen it. We've got stiffeners on the frame, cross members, and all that stuff. All right, we've made some changes back here. We've got some Milwaukee pack out stuff, and we've got it on some Stack Smarter products that makes everything kind of integrate and fit better. And as soon as we get the air conditioning recharged, because it went away when we pulled the engine, this thing will be back online 100%. Now I'm gonna talk about what's wrong with it. It is hot. We don't have any insulation between basically all the hot stuff and then the stuff we wanna keep cool. So that's something we're gonna be working on. The Morvair used to be that way, and I just put some stainless steel heat shield and a little bit of fiberglass insulation in a couple places, and the Morvair cooled down by 20 degrees inside the cabin. And we're just gonna do the same thing to this at some point in the future, probably pretty soon. Maybe we'll wait till winter. You never know. Another thing that's wrong with it is we have all these loose wires that need to be protected. People are always kicking these wires and that stuff. We've got to get those loomed up out of the way and get some paneling to protect them. I think we've got a pretty good start to that. We just need to finish it, once again, some point in the future. I would say this needs to be fixed. Yeah. What would you say? So now at this point, nothing stops the Banana. It goes everywhere we ask it to go. It does everything. Now, you can point out that it lost an engine, but it's never let us down. It drove home from that job. We did have an electrical problem with the engine harness, but once again, it completed the job before it let us down. So I can say with a clear conscience, the Banana's never let us down on a job and has completed hundreds, if not 1,000 or more missions with flying colors. And I think the old girl's got a lot left in her. One thing about off-road recovery vehicles, and you're probably gonna find this as we go throughout this video, they need a lot of maintenance, and there's a lot of things that break on them. And it's not because they're bad vehicles, it's just because of the type of environment that you're asking them to be 100% in. So to summarize, there's plenty wrong with this Jeep that we've gotta fix. You were right. Moving along to the next vehicle that we added to the fleet, the lowly off-road trailer. This was a controversial build. Let me show you all the things that don't work on this. These are the ramps, the original ramps that we built. These are bleachers reinforced with a little bit of steel. They're light enough that a regular person can use them. They're strong enough to support the weight of a full-grown man. Okay, the purpose for this trailer was born out of the side-by-side phenomenon that I like to call chaos. So it used to be like this. You used to have to buy a Jeep or a Bronco or something, and you take it out on the trails, and you wouldn't be able to get very far because it was stock, so you'd have to save up some money, and you'd have to get like a little lift or some tires, or maybe just shocks and tires and whatever. And in that process, you would meet people and you would join a club or whatever, and you would learn about proper wheeling techniques and stewardship of the land. And I'm not saying that everybody that owns a Jeep followed that path, But a lot of people I know, that was the path that got them into off-roading. Now, you can go down with bad credit, plop down a down payment, drive out with a brand new side-by-side, and just rip Mother Nature a new one. So the problem isn't the machine. The machines are very capable, they're very smooth, they're actually very safe also. The problem lies in the education level of the person driving them. They don't understand how to tread lightly. And I'm speaking in generalities here. There is so many of those things all over the place, and they're breaking wheels off at an unprecedented level. Yes, you can break a wheel off a Jeep. Yes, you can break a wheel off a motorcycle or a quad or a sandrail. But they never did it in the quantities that side-by-sides do it in. And I mostly blame the fact that they are so accessible and they are so capable that they are literally flying through the air all the time. So we had a problem. We've got to gather these up. This was my solution. This is what I understood would work. This is what I had money to build. And this is quite possibly the most obedient trailer I have ever owned. In fact, it definitely is the most obedient. You hook it onto the back of the Banana or the Morvair, it just goes where it's told. And we've had it everywhere. So the trailer worked really good in the first version. We actually got rid of the suspension because it was too much of a headache. I was spying on my buddy Rory Irish one day, and I noticed that his off-road trailer didn't have any suspension. And so I copied him, straight up ripped it off. Plagiarism, if you will. I told you this was a controversial trailer when I built it. I don't know why I have to look at this and poke this through, but I do. It won't go through unless I look at it. So the ramps were highly controversial. I bet you got 1,000 comments that these would never be strong enough to work. They haven't broken yet, but that doesn't mean they're not going to break on the next job. So you could be right. The other thing that I did, look under here. Remember my lightning campaign that everything had to be as light as possible? Look how many holes I cut in this.
Oh, wow. It's a light trailer.
Yeah, that probably only dropped like 4 pounds, but 4 pounds is 4 pounds. We added these fenders when we went and did the airplane job because I knew how wide the track was for the tires on that plane, and it needed these. Actually, Rudy welded these on. Now we've settled on this setup for winching. We got the Badlands Apex winch. We've got the full throttle battery, and we have this nice little solar charger to keep it charged all the time. We switched from the ball to the spindle hitch. There was a job we were on where the ball didn't work anymore. It was probably the fact that the Jeep was hanging in the air off of the ball, and I was driving back and forth and back and forth. So that's when we changed to the spindle style hitch. It has actually been designed, we can raise it and lower it. We got 2 different settings on there. Turns out we don't need it. Even though we're gonna have the spud truck, this trailer's still gonna get used. It'll be used for motorcycles down in Rattlesnake. Spud truck, I don't think is gonna do much of Rattlesnake. I think it'll do the first couple water crossings, but it's gonna be too big to go down there. This is a little trailer that could. So in spite of the bleacher ramps and all the holes I drilled in the frame, this has been a great little trailer, and it continues to do what we do. There's one thing about this trailer that it bugs me when people say it, and I don't know why it bugs me. It shouldn't bug me, but it totally does. I'll put one of the big side-by-sides on here, and the center line of the axle will be right here, and the center line of the axle will be right here. And they're like, oh man, you got lucky. That almost didn't fit, or something along those lines. Like, oh, time to build a bigger trailer. When the actual thing that happened was I measured the longest wheelbase of it. I think at the time it was a Can-Am, and I added, in case they lengthened it, I added 4 more inches longer, so the deck is actually about 8 inches longer than the longest side-by-side at the time when I built this trailer. So it was built as short as I possibly could and still fit every side-by-side that was in existence at the time, and we have yet to find a side-by-side that doesn't fit on this deck. Now you're right, the tire sticks over, but the center line of the weight is on the deck. So even though I'm shooting from the hip and estimating and using my micrometer, I'm still trying to hit a target that will work for what I'm doing. And this trailer nailed it. It was the right price, it's the right size, the right weight, the right capability, the right trailer for the job. What is wrong with this trailer? Well, every time somebody else pulls it out there that's not me, they bend this front axle. So we need to reinforce that. You can see this wheel right here is a little more crooked. Yeah, see that? But here's the deal. It's not affecting its capability, so we're not gonna fix it till it becomes a problem. For those of you that said this trailer would never work, you're pretty much right. Let's move on to the next one. That brings us to the Bombi. We were doing winter recoveries with the Banana, and we were meeting with some success and some failures, and we needed something that could do the snow recoveries. This just kind of fell in my lap. I got a phone call from Paul, might have been a text. He says, hey, do you want a snowcat? My work is selling one. I went up and bought it. I bought this for $5,000. It came with a trailer. There'd been a lot of people working on it. It had all kinds of fingerprints, but its bones were good. And we've replaced all the bones, every single one. So of the original Bombi that I bought, the cab, which is not on it right now, that originally came with it, but I did add a door in it. And then the actual tub here, just the tub. These panels are actually original panels. We modified them a little bit so that they work this way. But that's it. Every single thing else has changed. We've changed the engine, transmission, we've changed the drive, the axles, hubs, wheels, all that's been changed. And since we did that, we've had a couple of snow jobs, and we were told that the steering system wouldn't work, that the brakes weren't big enough, and there was all kinds of problems. And at first it didn't work, but now it works pretty good. Way better than the original did. The original brakes were always done about 1 mile of driving, and you would have to let it set for 20 or 30 minutes before the brakes would start working again. Now we can do entire jobs without the brakes fading. With that being said, there's still some work that will make the steering even better. So now as it sets, it's got an aluminum 5.3 LS in it. It's got a turbo 350 transmission, Adams drive shaft, and then it's got a hybrid Ford 9-inch Dana 60 outers for the final drive. It's got more power than we could possibly need, and it sounds really good. And it does snow, we know that. It does sand, we know that. And it's somewhat amphibious. And that is one thing. It doesn't steer well once the brakes get wet from water, but they dry out really fast and it starts turning good. Okay, let's talk about the bad. What is bad about this? What is still wrong? The dash flickers on and off. I'm thinking it's a ground. It's something that we can fix. This switch is far too fragile to be in a work rig like this. And this is the second one of these we've put in. It's just a mess. I'm not willing to deal with it. We're gonna change this whole starting system. I like the switch on, push button. But the problem with this switch is the off-on switch is so flimsy and it fails internally. And the problem with the button is it gets sand in it and you push it in and it won't pop back out. And so it just cranks. So neither of those are acceptable and we're gonna have to fix that. It is kind of cool to have it for racing use only. I need a little smaller master cylinder. I've got the 1-inch bores and I need to get a little bit more mechanical advantage. So I need to step down to like maybe 7/8 or even 3/4. I don't know yet. That's something that needs to be done. I don't think I have quite enough air inlet space. I designed it so there would be negative pressure here so that no fumes build up inside the cab. So it's always sucking fresh air in around all the air leaks. And trust me, you need it because it gets so hot in here. It's nice to have that fresh air coming in. The problem is the volume of air that the radiator needs to go out the back, it's not quite getting it. And you can tell that because it's like a vacuum cleaner right here when you're revving it up. Definitely for summertime use, we need to engineer a little bit more air inlet. And even for winter, I think it would benefit from it. But you can just feel it sucking through this hole. So that means that these vents aren't quite enough. We're gonna have to figure something out. Maybe add some extra vents, I don't know. But getting a little bit of air in there would be good. The fact that it doesn't have suspension, it's a consideration when driving it. It didn't have it before because it was all busted down and they were all on the bump stops. But with the added power, it just goes. You have a tendency to drive it faster than you should. It should be driven slow, kind of like a skid steer and not fast like an attack tank, or a rip saw, if you will. But we have done some damage to it. I took my family to the Coral Peak Sand Dunes. Rudy was there in his sandrail, and we were shredding the big dunes. There was like 3 inches of snow on the sand, and we were just, wah, like 40 miles an hour, which is terrifying in this thing. And in the afternoon, I didn't see a jump, and it went like this. I'll draw you how it went. So here's the Bombi. Rudy already drew that for us. And there was a jump like this, and then a face like this. And I jumped, and I flat landed like this. Like it was a really, really, really hard hit. And it bent my front axle. It's hard to see. But this wheel has got negative camber on it. We're gonna have to fix that. It's not affecting it, like we can go out and drive it, we have been, but I would like to fix that and reinforce it, and then discipline myself enough not to do that kind of shenanigan with this piece of equipment. We haven't been able to do any night jobs, but we're ready for them. Oh wow, we got brights and dims. Well, the dims just quit working. There we go. Brights. These switches do not like sand. I'm gonna have to get on the sandrail site and get some sand sealed switches. Oh, I would really like to replace these seats. These seats were spec'd out by Tom and Lizzie, and I don't know how big they think I am, but this is the seats they ordered. I feel like I'm sitting in that novelty chair up in Beaver at the gas station. You know which one I'm talking about? I don't know if they need to be replaced or not, but they are big. These are a big seat. I also need better cup holders. I need deeper, more solid cup holders. Colin built these ones and they're just not quite what I'm looking for. There was a lot of discussion about the defroster not working. It works perfectly. It works amazing. Very happy with it, especially with the Safari top. And to wrap this up, yes, you were correct. The Bombi won't work. And that brings us to the Morvair. So I remember the day that I announced to the world that I was going to take a Corvair station wagon and I was going to make a useful off-road recovery vehicle with it. Let me tell you what's going on today. So last year I started this project. I had this shell of a 1961 Corvair wagon laying around, and I got thinking how cool it would be to build this into an off-road recovery machine. And it was met with some skepticism, I'm not gonna lie. But even with all the doubt, me and my crew pressed forward and we created what I believe to be the finest automobile for off-road recovery in its class, bar none, no exceptions. This does everything the Banana does except for the super tight, twisty trails. It does them, the Banana's just faster and better for those. And that makes sense. This is in a weight class up above the Banana. And so like I said, it does everything the Banana does, except for it does it with more authority. And it does it with more comfort. And some could argue that it does it with more style. Many of you know the story. I was chasing this particular car since I was 12 years old. And by the time I got it, it was so rusted out on the bottom. It had been setting on the ground, setting in snow and salt, I assume. The rockers were gone, the floors were gone, much of the frame structure was gone. It was the perfect candidate for this type of build. The rest of the body didn't have any rust in it. We didn't do any rust repair in the existing body, and the parts of the body that are missing were already gone. Like, I pulled these rockers out just with my hands, like it was just dust. And I used the Banana and the upgrades I did to the Banana, I used that as a template for this. So I've got the triangulated 4-link up front, which we all know doesn't work with a steering box, but it doesn't work perfectly. It's awesome. I've got triangulated rear links. I'm running ORIs up front. I'm running Bilstein shocks and XJ springs in the rear. I've got a Dana 60 front axle out of a 1990 Dodge truck, and the Dana 70 in the rear out of that same truck. Just like the Banana, I'm running a Yukon Grizzly front locker, and I'm running the Dana Spicer power lock in the rear. So that's a limited slip, or a Positrack if you prefer to call it that. I'm running a cast iron 5.3 out of a 2004 GMC Silverado or Chevy something. General Motors truck. I'm running a turbo hydromatic 400 out of a GM vehicle, and then I'm running a low max 205 case with 3-to-1 gears for transfer case. It is running 513 gears, which is a little bit higher than the Banana. Banana's running 538s, and I'm also running a little bit taller tires. I'm running 40-inch tires on the Morvair, and we're 37s on the Banana. When you pop the hood here, you'll see we've just got kind of a no-nonsense, no frills installation of a 5.3 LS. If you want to fight me and say that's not a real LS, it's an LM7, meet me after school by the bike racks. Like the Banana, we're running the PSC power steering system with the Hydro Boost hydraulic ram there. I didn't have anybody to tell me what I could and couldn't do when I was building this. So I did a lot of things that I found out later you can't do. I'm just so glad that I did them before I found out we couldn't do them because they work so good. One of them is how I hooked this ram on. I've got it at an angle here because I figured what I was gonna do is I was gonna draw a line between the ball joints, well in this case they're kingpins, so that I'm pushing at a right angle to those. I think it's the correct way to do it. I was told it's not the correct way to do it. I'm just glad it works perfectly. And I can hear you asking, Matt, what about all the bump steer you get with triangulated 4-link and then you run that drag link that has to change lengths? Well, if you look, like the Banana, I'm running a completely level drag link. And so that means I have a lot of suspension travel before it moves enough to induce bump steer. And when you're out on the trail, like in the sand dunes or the rough trails, if there is any bump steer, you're never gonna know it. You're not gonna feel it. I even had the owner of PSC come and test drive this rig. He was concerned about the bump steer on this. We took him through some big dips on the road and he was just like, I'm not feeling any bump steer. So once again, sometimes it's nice to not know what you can't do and just go ahead and just do it. This is one of my favorite features, the scanner bar. We use this to help look for people when they're lost out there. This rig doesn't do anything weird. It doesn't have weird handling characteristics on or off the road. It always starts, it always drives, it always goes. We had a video recently where Colin was saying that it was down on power.
While I was driving the Morvair, I noticed it doesn't have as much power as it used to have, and the throttle pedal feels weird. But like, I'm in second gear, that's to the floor. It should be downshifting to first and taking off.
What actually was happening there that Colin wasn't factoring in is that he was climbing an elevation. He was about 10,000 feet at that point, and he was still in high range. The road was very steep, steeper than it was looking, and he was driving through all that slushy snow, and that was just sapping power. And when he shifted into low range, he's like, oh, it's running great again. So it was just a little bit of inexperience with elevation changes, not really noticing the surroundings. So we haven't had any problems with this. This thing has just started up and gone to work every single day. Every single day. Now that I've told you everything works great on this, let me tell you everything that's wrong with this, that you were right about. Number one, the AC compressor just lost its clutch. The clutch is just fried on it. I don't know why it fried, but it did. We've got the new one right here in this box. So that's coming up pretty quick. Let me show you something that's wrong with it that we just are not going to fix. So one of the problems with this is how tiny these doors are. They are miniature. And so for a guy like me that needs to get in here, you guys think I'm acting. I am getting in the wrong way, but I'm getting in the way you think you would want to get in the first time you ever got in this. There. Once you're in, you got lots of room. Like, this is not bad. Legs are straight. Look how straight my legs are. But getting in and out of this, so I'll show you the right way to get in this. The right way to get in this is put your head in first and then shimmy on in here. And then once you're in, you're good. So we're not gonna fix this door. It's just gonna be hard to get in and out of. The back door is much larger. It's easier to get in the back door. The problem is there's nowhere to go. So you can see, while it is totally possible to sit and fit back here, it is not comfortable. So what you have to do at this point is ask whoever's in the front seat to give up a little of their leg room to give you some of yours. Caitlin, do you want to move that seat up?
Yep.
Oh, that's all the way. It's never going to go that far. Let's say that it did. Let's say that somebody did slide it all the way up for you. Let me show you the next problem. It's going to be right here. So your left leg has plenty of room, and you would find it to be quite normal sitting in the back seat of a classic car. The right foot, however, not so much. You'll notice there's a big old box protruding right into the passenger compartment. And there's a good reason for that. When you're setting up suspension, there's a little thing they call geometry that you got to get kind of right. The problem with geometry is you can get it perfect on paper and perfect in theory, but when you go to put it in the vehicle, the packaging changes everything. So you have to make compromises. Well, there's some compromises I didn't necessarily want to make. And one of them was where this upper link mounts. So this box right here is where your left leg goes, and it's normal. But up here, where this link is right here, as high as that link is, that's why that box protrudes into the space. And there's a couple things there. One, it allowed my geometry to be more correct. And two, it put that link high enough that the exhaust pipe wouldn't be hanging down low, because that's where it was gonna cross the link right there. So the back seat is not super comfortable for somebody who's 6'2", 225 pounds, but we're not gonna fix it. I need to come up with a better venting system for the gas tank. I've got to, I have to. The problem is, it has a vented gas cap, so that works, but when it builds pressure in there, I don't have a venting system for that. And sometimes in the summertime, this can build quite a bit of pressure, and I think it's dangerous, because when you pull the cap off sometimes, it's like, poof. So, I do need to fix something there. We should probably fix that before this summer.
Isn't it also a long ways from where it's come though?
Oh, let me tell you about a problem we did fix. We used to have to unbolt this, lift it up, undo a cap, put a hose and a funnel on it, and then fill it for 45 minutes at the gas station. So it was worth the gamble to run out of fuel, which we did quite a bit. Like twice or 3 times. This glass, this is wrong. So what's happening here, this is laminated glass, and they're just cracking and breaking. Nothing really happened, they just cracked. We've got to get tempered glass in here. It's definitely on the list. Maybe pretty soon. This is tempered back here. This got hit by a rock next to a semi in the gorge, and it popped a rock out of the tire like they do and hit it right there. So that was actual injury. We'll get them replaced. We should get this to Robbie and get it repainted too. Get everything fixed. Would you guys like to see that? Give this thing a full restoration. The problem with getting this up to Robbie's is this is our reliable rig. This is the one that's just always out there working while the other ones are taking little breaks. So to summarize, you were right. A Corvair-based off-road recovery vehicle will never work. And I can appreciate that now that I know. This is the point when we drive the wrecker in one of the bays and go over it. But we just got a call. So we're gonna have to do it on the fly. Well, like I said, we're headed to a job, but the show must go on. So the wrecker, let's start with what's right with the wrecker. If you're not familiar, I'll just give you a quick rundown. The wrecker is powered by an 8.1 liter. It's a Gen 7 GM big block. It's the last big block that General Motors made, and it is just torque. It's absolute torque. It's a really, really good pull-in truck motor. Got a 4L85 automatic transmission backed up by a Magnum box from Off-Road Designs, and then an SCS drop box, the kind they put in monster trucks. I like saying that. 11-year-old me would be very impressed by that statement, and that's kind of who I'm trying to impress right now. It's got 9-ton MRAP axles. They are rated for a 30,000 pound load. They've got planetary gears out on the hubs, and that's 4-wheel steering. It's got a 154-inch wheelbase. I think it's a 106-inch wide track width. It weighs 12,400 pounds. We might be 12,500 because we've added a couple things, but who's keeping track of that? Certainly not me. So I imagined the utility of this rig before I imagined the styling of this rig. And we spent a long time trying to make this a cab forward design. So I initially thought that would be the best use of space and the ability to keep the center of gravity low. So I was going with a mid-engine cab forward, but not very far into the design process, which was basically happening inside my head, I realized that the cab would have to be so narrow to get the articulation I needed, and this, like the steering articulation and then the flexing suspension articulation. The cab would end up being single wide and we'd have to sit in a row. And I actually have a picture the night before we laid a torch to steel, and we were sitting there trying to figure out seating position. Here's that picture right now. It is me and Rudy and Casey Liddell trying to figure out how much space we're going to need for a cab and what the seating arrangement would look like.
You're right about 8 inches.
We planned it.
Nuts.
I'm glad we landed where we did on the International R200 cab. I think it looks great. It's still a mid-engine design. I know a couple of you do want to fight me on that, but the engine is several feet behind the center line of the front axle. It is a forward-biased mid-engine buggy that does wrecker things. Like the company that built the Titanic, we had a few problems in the beginning and we had to resolve them. We had weak drivetrain components that we just kept snapping and breaking, and we would upgrade them and then the next thing would break. Finally we landed on that SCS drop box and all our woes seem to have evaporated. And we've been working it. We've done a lot of crazy things with it since that, and it shows no indication of being a weak link at all anymore. We call it the world's largest off-road wrecker because it is the world's largest extreme trail rated off-road recovery vehicle on the planet. It will get in there where every single buggy can get, and it will hook onto them and it will rip them from the very trail that has trapped them, drag them to safety. It's amazing. We've been successful on hundreds of jobs, ranging from the small and simple to the extremely complex and dangerous. It is by far the largest leap forward in our capability as an off-road recovery company, as far as sheer power and ability to get jobs done with relative ease. And yes, while it is the largest off-road wrecker in the world, it's also small enough that it can sneak into places that you wouldn't think it would easily fit. It's kind of funny to watch the Banana navigate an obstacle and watch the wrecker navigate that same obstacle with greater ease, more clearance. I'm thinking of those S-bends down in Rattlesnake where it's just, the Banana really shines down there and the wrecker kind of outclasses it a little bit. I feel like the bugs that we had to work out of the wrecker, even though we had a few of them, for something this complex and this big and new, and I didn't have anybody to copy, I feel like we kind of nailed it. We haven't had any major redesigns or restructures. Everything that we've had to redesign or re-engineer has been superficial or on the surface, like something that we could unbolt and move or unbolt and eliminate or reroute. So I honestly couldn't be happier with how that whole process of shaking it down has gone. Admittedly, there was times of frustration, especially when I gutted my fourth NP205 with just a slight blip of the throttle, but we've moved past that. But now we're gonna get to all the things about it that will never work and won't work and we should just give up on. The cooling system. The cooling system works really good, but it's not finished. I've never finished putting the shroud to keep hot air from recirculating into the inlet of the front radiator, and then the rear radiator, half of the shroud has never been built on the bottom half of the fan. It's time to get that done because it can run a little warm in the summertime when you're pulling hard, heavy loads, the tailwind at low speeds. So look for that upgrade. We're gonna be doing that this summer. Why not do it in the summer? We should do it in the winter, right?
Yeah, I should.
It's also missing the driver's side window. My plan is to do a wing window delete. That's gonna help with visibility airflow and looks, in my opinion. And you can't use the wing windows anyway when you have those big mirrors. They don't work as wing windows. I think that'll be an improvement to get glass in there that rolls up and rolls down and delete those wing windows. There's a fair amount of wiring that needs to be finished. Switches, lights, we got to put a heater in it. We've got a list on the board of stuff. We actually wrote everything out that needed to be done on this to get it finished. And there is one more little problem. It's got some kind of a gremlin in there. It's always had it, where when you first start it up, it doesn't run good. It'll die sometimes, like in the first 5 to 10 minutes. It's hard to explain, and it sounds like a made-up problem, but I can just touch the fuse panel and keep it running. It's so weird. Like, I don't want to get into it, but once it warms up, the problem goes completely away. I think I found the right guy here locally to help me get it sorted out. We're going to be taking it there next week. And you're right, I could take it to Chad, but Chad is almost 5 hours away from my shop. So taking the little nickel and dime problems to Chad doesn't make a lot of sense. So as you can plainly see, there's some really good things about the wrecker, and there's things about the wrecker that just don't work and probably never will. This brings us to Blue Steel, which is literally the vehicle I'm driving right now. Blue Steel is a 2016 F-250 Super Duty, and yes, it is a steel-bodied Ford. It's the last year for that. So while Blue Steel is its name, it's also quite accurate because it's blue and it's steel. And yes, it's named after Zoolander. Not so much because I love Zoolander, but it just fit so perfectly. Why do we name our vehicles? So we don't do the whole, hey, go fuel up the truck. Which truck? The Ford. Which Ford? The blue Ford. Which blue Ford? The one with the flatbed. Oh, why don't you just say Blue Steel? Bingo. See? And we can give them numbers. A lot of companies do that. They number their trucks. Man, numbers are hard to remember. Not just for people like me that are a little deficient, but even in real life. I found that out doing Demolition Derby. If I named my car, I could build a fan base in just a couple of years because they could remember that my car always said junkie on the side of it. And it's also really hard, like when you pull into an arena and your fans are like, go number 28. Or if they said, yeah, junkie. So you can see it's just more natural to name things than number them, unless you're George Costanza. He wanted to name his kid 7. Blue Steel is completely stock except for the flatbed that Robbie helped us put on. We swapped out the OEM springs for a set of Alcan springs that seem to suit every single occasion. Those guys are straight up legit when it comes to leaf springs. I'm glad we used them for the spud truck because I expect them to perform in a similar way on the spud truck. It's also got a 55-gallon fuel tank, which makes the long haul road trips really nice for me, really uncomfortable for my passengers. So we had a lot of doom and gloom predicted when Colin poured DEF in the fuel tank and we had to flush it out. There were several comments that were absolutely sure that we were going to wipe out our CP pump and the injectors and all that stuff. So far, so good. So I'm glad that didn't happen. Blue Steel's primary function is a long hauler, street driving. I know a lot of you want us to put a lift on it and some more aggressive tires, but it doesn't make any sense. We've got 250,000 miles on this truck, and almost every single one of those is with pavement under the tires. But it does have the winch on the front, and we have done several recoveries with Blue Steel that we've shown on the channel. We've recovered, and one of them was a semi. So there's a lot of things right about Blue Steel, and there's a few things that aren't right with Blue Steel, and for those reasons, Blue Steel will probably never work, and that's a crying shame. We're gonna have to save the spud truck for later since it's not done, and I don't know everything that's wrong with it yet. I guess I could read the comments. But yeah, that's my current ragtag fleet, built mostly of garbage cars, but it's all I could afford at the time. Thanks for watching. Oh, he's gonna want in front of me. I'm gonna let him go. I choose to live in a society